Chapter 42, My Precious. The car was speeding along the highway with 3 naked men, 2 on the front seat, and 1 fainted on the back. Luckily for them, it was already dark, and they kept the lights off, so no one saw them. They wanted to get to a hospital fast, but the nearest one was 20 minutes away. And their phones were left in a hotel room as they didn't want to be traced. Ah! The driver heard the sound of his master waking up in the back, but he didn't say anything, just kept focusing on the road while praying that his punishment would be light. What happened? Nick asked as he opened his panda eyes and looked at himself. He saw nothing, it was pitch black. And only the light from the reflected headlights made him see the silhouette of 2 bald heads in the front seat. Why am I naked? He thought first, then tried to sit down, but the pain from his legs made him fall and hit his head on the seat again. Looking at the car's roof, he slowly remembered being hit by his brother. Fuck, he thought, as he remembered what Victor told him. They have set him up. They have probably discovered that he was building his own army and decided to sacrifice him. He let his desire for getting the twins blind him, and fell into their trap. Thankfully, Victor did not dare to kill him. And he will have a chance to exact revenge on all of them. He reached his hand to touch his ring, which he killed his best friend to get. This is his tool for revenge, his army of death warriors which he has been training for a year and a half now. He will make them castrate Victor for their first mission, and then he will make them kill that scheming pony-tailed cousin of his. After that, he will appear at his brother's funeral to take the 2 twins as their new master. He thought with a perverted smile as he touched the ring. Where is that ring? His finger was empty. What? Did he put it in his pocket? Where is my pocket? Where are my pants? Where are my clothes? Why am I naked? My things? My precious. Nick just remembered that he was still naked. Turn on the FC King lights, he yelled at his hunch men in the front to turn on the car's interior lights. The men hesitated for a second, then nervously pressed the light switch on the front panel. What Nick saw was not his naked body, nor was it his broken legs, but a white light inviting him to the afterlife. Kaboom! The car exploded into a flaming ball of steel, illuminating the deserted mountain road. Chapter 43, Somethings to Do. Hearing the sound of the car leaving the mansion, Victor breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly stood up and went to Hilda and checked her situation. While the twins took their phones to call an ambulance, but Victor stopped them as he didn't want Nick to meet them on the way. Don't call anyone. She will be fine, he said. Her situation was not good, but Victor knew that she would live. Players were very resilient and have a way to help her. His merchant skill has just finished its cooldown, so he quickly operated it and bought a bottle of minor healing for 5,000 coins. Secretly taking it from the shop, he got a bottle containing 5 round red pills. This is the cheapest kind of medicine in the system shop. It has a full healing effect on players under level 15, a medium effect for levels 15-25, and a low effect for levels 25 to 30. It will not work for higher levels. Victor quickly turned to face Hilda and the girls and took 1 pill from the bottle and fed it to Hilda, who realized what this is, and was very grateful to Victor. As she realized the pill's value. There was no visual effect, no red light, but Hilda, who was still covered in blood and relatively weak, was able to sit down with some help. She knew that she was about 50% healed. She would be able to walk by herself tomorrow and would be fully healed in a week. Young master, what is this pill? Asked Mina. It's a secret product of my family, don't worry. Hilda would be back to normal by tomorrow as her injury was very light. He lied. Why don't you take her to her room and take care of her, he said. The twins were hesitant. What if there was something wrong? Don't they need a doctor? Or do you prefer to stay here with me and continue showing me your bodies? He asked with a smirk. Ah. The girls had just remembered that they are nearly naked, so they quickly ran away to find something to cover themselves, leaving Hilda and Victor alone in the hall. As for Lily, she seemed to have disappeared somewhere while they were not looking. Call my father and tell him what happened, Nick might want to revenge. Victor said to Hilda in a serious tone. As if Nick would still be alive tomorrow. Understood. Is the pill a secret? Said Hilda. Not from my father. He answered as he looked at the twins, who returned after getting dressed and quickly helped Hilda to her room in the servants' building. Tonight spend the night with Hilda and be ready for our trip at 6 a.m. tomorrow. He told them as they walked away. They seemed to be asking Hilda if she really didn't need a doctor. Watching them leave, Victor looked at Lily, who has just returned from the outside. How was the situation? Jacob is not here anymore, and I did a preliminary check, and there seem to be no bombs in the mansion, but I still need to do a more thorough search on the forest and the unused buildings. Okay, start searching, be careful. And if you find any recording devices, leave them be as if you haven't seen them, just note their position. He said to her, I have a few things to do tonight, so if anyone asked about me, tell them that I am very tired and went to sleep. And don't let anyone into my room, I don't want anyone to know where I am. He said. Lily nodded her head, but she seemed a little worried. So Victor slowly petted her head. Don't worry, I am stronger than you think, he said. Boom. Suddenly there was a sound of an explosion in the distance. Both Lily and Victor smiled evilly as they knew what that was. Poor Nick has probably already become a cooked Nick. Now go do your job, he said with a frown. His plan may have been a little reckless, but this is the best for now. He has to tread carefully though, as there will be a family investigation after this. Understood, she said before glancing at Victor. You too, be careful, young master, she said in a soft voice as she left. First of all, Victor collected the clothes on the ground and inspected the belongings of Nick and his friends. The two hooligans had nothing of value. As for Nick's belongings, there were some interesting things. There were a few bank cards, but Victor knew that those are worthless. No smart man would put his real wealth in a bank if he intended to hide them from the family. Nick also had no phone, so he probably hid it somewhere before he came. There was also his yellow family token and the administrator ring Nick used to torture Hilda. This ring was signed by his father and given to Nick to manage Vane City's shadow business, so it would only work on Theodore's servants. Victor would not take any of those, as he would be questioned about them when the family inquisitor arrives, so he left them with the rest. What Victor found interesting were one strange ring, a set of 3 unidentifiable keys, and a glass vial containing some kind of a liquid. So he took those and left the rest on the entrance, tucked in a corner. The 3 keys had a number and a logo of a storage company he knew. So it was probably where Nick hid some secrets. The strange ring was an artifact, Victor could feel it, so he used his appraisal skill on it. Ring of the Minor Masters, F+. Owner, none. Brand slave tattoo on target grants abilities to kill, inflict pain, locate, communicate. Requires the target to be a non-player and not to resist the branding. 41/50, branded. Oh, so Nick was building his own army, thought Victor. The ring having no owner indicates that Nick had truly died. And this ring was interesting, but not in the way that stupid Nick used it in. And this would make his job tomorrow a lot easier. Victor quickly cut his finger and marked the ring with his blood. Now it belongs to him. As for the slaves, he would check on them later. After that, he looked at the glass vial. It had blue sparkling liquid inside, so Victor opened it and took a quick sniff, then closed it immediately with a terrified face. That was dangerous, he thought. This vial contains an aphrodisiac, not one meant for women, but for men. Victor knew that it was meant to be used on him. He does not have a use for this now, but it would come in handy later. Victor smiled as he thought of the man he was going to use this on. Taking a deep breath, Victor took those things and put them in his pockets. Now it's time to go hunt some snakes, he thought. Victor left the mansion in secret after changing his clothes to a black sneaking suit and used the disguise skill to hide his presence. When he reached the bottom gate, he saw that idiot guard sitting on his comfy chair reading some adult's magazine with a perverted smile on his face. Victor really wanted to smack him dead, but he knew that this was not the right time to do it. He needed him as a witness of Nick leaving the mansion. And killing him now would raise unwanted questions. Nick probably planned to kill him too after killing everyone else in the mansion to hide his track. On second thought, he should leave such a lucky guard alive, as he has already managed to escape death twice today while doing nothing. Earlier, Victor thought that the guard was conspiring with Nick. But now he discovered that this guy was just a lucky idiot. Every young master should have an idiot guard. So he will keep him and use him later. He needs to punish him though, for letting the twins return to the mansion without a warning about Nick. But that would have to wait too. Now, where did that snake go? Chapter 44, Hunting Snakes and Brewing Poisons. Victor moved fast through the forests, following the black fate thread he was tracking with his skill. He activated it earlier when he spotted Jacob at the mansion. He stayed away from the highways to avoid any security cameras, and kept on going for half an hour until he reached a faraway community. He quickly felt the thread's connection getting stronger. Jacob was nearby, he could feel it. He activated his disguise skill and soon turned into a tall youth with a pretty face, sword-like eyebrows, and purplish-red long hair arranged in a ponytail. Then out of the forest. He smiled as he saw his reflection on a nearby storefront window. Now let's continue. If Nick saw him like that, he would think that this was the man who ordered him to kill Victor. He didn't hide anymore but didn't show himself either, just walked as if he was trying to hide, making sure to be captured only on a few faraway cameras and avoiding the obvious ones. And soon he reached an abandoned apartment building. He went in silently after checking that there was no one is around, then went upstairs to the 5th story where the thread stopped pointing up. When he reached a certain apartment, he sneaked in silently with his disguise skill. He could easily find the strings and cans that were probably put there by Jacob to warn him of intruders. But with Victor's experience, he was able to walk silently until he saw Jacob sitting in a room inside cleaning a gun with a little smile. Victor sneaked behind him and struck him hard on the neck, killing him in just one move. That's how you deal with poisonous snakes. No need for pointless chatter. As he killed them, he could feel the black fate thread he locked with his skill snap, and his skill was free again. But there was an additional reward. He felt as if that black thread's energy were added to his own fate. He will have to investigate this later, but for now, he has more pressing issues. He quickly searched the body but found nothing of importance, just a passport and a plane ticket to another country. Victor quickly took those and burned them as they would implicate Arya. She would be in a problem anyway though, as this idiot was her uncle, and if her secret was discovered, it would lead to her death, so he have to give her a better position in the family to protect her. He searched the apartment for some big garbage bags, but found nothing and could only roll Jacob in a tattered rug he found in an adjacent apartment. He took him and went out, heading to the forest where he threw him inside a hole he found earlier. Then covered him with a thin layer of dirt. He made sure that the corpse would be found easily. Then he hid again and changed his look into a middle-aged man, then returned to the downtown and headed into a storage building. He was going to check on Nick's keys. In the first 2 storage compartments, there was a lot of cash stacked in black bags. Victor didn't touch them, as he will not need them. And when the family traces Nick's movement, they would probably be discovered. As for the last one, it contained some documents, cards and identity papers. So he took those and put them in his bag, then left the building and went to a nearby train station after changing his shape, where he rented a storage box and put the things he took from Nick in it, but kept the ring and the vial on him. The mansion would be thoroughly searched by the family's investigators, so he needs to keep those things away for now. The next step was changing himself into a red-haired woman in a black dress. The disguise skill can be used in 2 ways. The first affects how he reflects light and sound, so if someone touches him he would realize there is something wrong. But for everyone looking and the security cameras, he was now an ugly woman with big breasts. As for the second way, it can create an illusion of a thing's existence, and Victor has to be near it, or it would only last for a few hours. He went to a nearby post office and wrote a letter to be delivered in the morning in 2 days. A young master shouldn't be doing such thankless things. I would need to form my secret organization soon, he thought. Although Lily can hide her presence, she lacks the experience of doing a complex task. And she would be probably suspected by the family, so he had to keep her in the dark. With the field work finished for tonight, he went back to the mansion. The trip took him 2 hours, as he had to be very careful not to be spotted. It was close to 11:00 p.m. when he entered his room through the window he left open earlier. He quickly took off his muddy clothes and went into the bath to clean all the dirt off him. Then he changed into silky pajamas and sat down on his desk, writing a note on a white piece of paper. Then he folded it and put it in an envelope with the words "read and destroy" finally written on it. This would be left for Lily just in case. Now, the situation has changed, so I need to prepare, he thought as he hesitated for a moment, then called Arya's phone. She answered immediately. "Good evening, young master. What can I do for you?" she said in a cold voice. "Were you already awake, or did I wake you up?" he asked. "Does it matter?" "Not really. For the trip tomorrow I would need you to come with me." "I can't do that. I don't have time to play." That was not a question, but order as a family heir. "And wear hiking clothes. We might need to go into the forest. Be here at 7:00 and bring another van, some friends are coming too," he said, and hang up, not waiting for her to answer or hang up on him. She likes to argue, but would never defy an official order. And he was doing this for her own good. The actions he took today would make some events unfold a couple of years earlier. But that was not necessarily a bad thing. He just needs to be ready. Now to do some cooking, he thought. When he reached downstairs, he met Lily has just come from the outside. Young master, the mansion is clean. There were no bombs or surveillance, she said. The twins and Hilda? He asked. They took Hilda to her room in the servant building. They would be spending the night there with her, she said. Good, he said, now go sleep, that's an order. I need you at your full strength tomorrow. I still need to prepare a few things for tomorrow's trip, he said to her. Lily, who was looking forward to sleeping with her young master, was a little dejected, but she knew that after today's events there would be some problems. And she needed her strength tomorrow, so after nodding her head, she went to her room to sleep. Victor looked at her leaving and smiled. He should pamper her more. But not now, as he had some dirty things to do. Looking through the packages that were near the door, Victor quickly located the things he bought in the market earlier. There were many items, so he sorted them out and quickly found the brown bag he was looking for. So he took it and went to the kitchen. Time to do some brewing, he thought. After closing the kitchen door, he unpacked the bag on a table. In it, there were 9 dried herbs. He quickly separated them into 2 groups. One contained 6, including the black rose petals, and the other had 3 herbs. Then he took out a normal little white herb he picked earlier from the woods. This is a very common herb, but it has some very nasty effects when combined with the black rose petals. This medicine by itself is a traditional one. It is commonly used by women giving birth. But what many didn't know is that this medicine has 2 kinds of components. The first ones are to increase the birth contractions to aid the birth, while the others are to ease the pain and relax the muscles. Victor smiled as he put herbs in separate pots, then added the white herb to the first pot and added a healing pill with the second one. The first is the poison and the second is the cure. He filled the pots with water and put them on the stove. He will let them simmer in boiling water for a while. He would need them to be concentrated. Although Victor never really practiced alchemy, he lived alone for a long time and read many secrets, so preparing a simple recipe like this was an easy matter for him. With that, he got out and locked the kitchen door, then returned to the entrance where the rest of the packs were. He bought many things today and they needed to be packed for tomorrow, so carried them to his room and began to pack up. First, he took out a big hiking backpack and put a hiking and a climbing kit and medical kit in it, then a little pickaxe and the little chalice he bought from the antique store. In addition to some dried foods. He didn't know how long would it take. Then he prepared 2 additional smaller bags for the twins and Lily. It took him nearly an hour to return to the kitchen and check on his work, which was mostly done. So he quickly fished 2 small plastic jars and filed them with the watery medicine he brewed. Then cleaned the pots, leaving no evidence. After he took the jars back to his room and packed them, he looked at the clock to find it was 1:00 am, so he decided to sleep. He might not get another chance to have a good sleep in a while. Chapter 45, Getting Ready. It was early morning when a knock on the door woke Victor up. Come in, he said. The door opened and Lily stepped in gracefully. Young master, it is 6:00 am. You need to get ready, she said. Victor slowly got up and stretched his limbs. Oh, okay. Help me find something suitable for today's hike. I'll go take a shower, he said as he took a towel and entered the bathroom. His shower took a few minutes, and when he returned to the room, Lily quickly helped get dressed, with a little blush on her face. Then they went downstairs. Hilda was in the dining room waiting with the twins. They bowed in salute when they saw Victor coming. They seemed fine after a night's sleep. Good morning, young master, Hilda said with the twins. How are you feeling today? Victor asked her as he sat down to begin his breakfast. I am much better now thanks to the young master's pill yesterday, she said. Then she tapped the girls on the back as a signal. Mina and Mana moved forward and bowed to Victor. Young master, we wish to thank you for your help and saving us yesterday. We were very occupied with Aunt Hilda that we forgot to thank you properly, Mina said. Oh, and how do you intend to thank me? Victor asked as he opened his mouth for Lily to put a peeled egg in it. They didn't expect such a question. How does he want them to thank him? Isn't saying thank you enough? Should they do other things? How would the girls be able to thank the young master? Hilda said, helping the girls. Ah, how about this, said Victor as he swallowed another egg. Today on the trip you will serve me in front of your friends, he said, making the girls look at him with pleading eyes. They did not want to be embarrassed in front of their friends. Don't worry. We would just say that we bet on something and I won the bet. How about that? He asked. They looked at each other and nodded. He sounded reasonable, and they are his maids anyway. Good, now join me for the meal. I don't like the feeling of eating alone. He said the truth for once. Yes, young master, they said and sat down to eat. 5 minutes later Mina suddenly looked at her young master who seemed to be texting on his phone and spoke. Young master, I want to ask you something, she said while hesitating, then looking at Hilda who was sending her a signal not to ask. Ask, said Victor as he pressed the send button and put his phone away. Yesterday, how could Nick use that weird ring to inflict pain on Hilda, and then he tried something on us, but it didn't seem to work. What is that ring? And does it have anything to do with the tattoos? She said while keeping her head down. Hilda rebuked them yesterday night when Mina asked her and warned them not to ask such questions. But the twins really needed to know, so they chose to ask Victor, who despite his unreasonable young master facade, they felt that he was good to them. Ah, about that, Victor pondered a little then answered. Well, this is a secret, but I can tell you some of it, he said, making the twins very curious. The tattoo on your backs are created with something called an artifact. Think of it as a magical device, he said while looking at the girls' unbelieving eyes. I am not kidding. Didn't you notice that after I did something to your tattoo the day before yesterday it changed its shape? He asked. Making the twins look at each other tattoos quickly, they didn't notice that as they were busy most of yesterday. This tattoo allows the master to control the life or death of his slave. He continued, Hilda is my father's servant, and he controls her tattoo, and the ring that was with Nick is called an administrator ring. Think of it as a delegation of power. It grants its holder the ability to punish servants as if he was the original owner. Father probably gave it to Nick when he sent him here to manage the estate. The girls gasped, wanting to ask something, but Victor did not allow them and continued to explain. It didn't work on you because I marked you the night before. You are considered mine, and not my father's, so only I can punish you. He said to the girls who looked a little terrified. Don't worry, if you didn't do something that would hurt or betray me, I would never use such cowardly means. I have better punishing methods. He said as he looked at Lily, who shrank her little butt. The twins looked at each other with a little fear in their eyes. They didn't think that things were this serious. But they were lucky they fell into the hands of such an understanding young master, not someone like Nick. Young master, why didn't you mark Aunt Hilda too? She would have probably been able to stop Nick if you did, Mona said as she saw Hilda a long time ago beat that loan shark who was after them with one punch. It's not that I didn't want to, but she is already owned, and my father would need to dispel his mark before I can mark her, he said as he wiped his mouth and stood up. That's all I can tell you, for now. You will know more sooner or later. Now go get ready. Wear some durable clothes since we will have to hike through some woods. Ah, and I have already prepared 2 bags with things you might need. You can find them in my room, the pink ones. He said as he knew the girls wanted to understand more about such magical means. The twins nodded, then went back to their room to change their clothes, knowing that those are all the answers they would get for now. Young master, what should I do with that trash near the door? Hilda asked as she pointed to the scattered pile of clothes. Leave it be, and if someone came to collect it, let them take it. Did you call my father? He asked. Yes, yesterday night, and he said that you don't need to worry, he will deal with Nick. She said with a smile. That's good. Victor said before turning to Lily, go fetch the 2 black backpacks from my room. You will carry the big one, while I will carry the small one, he said. Yes, young master, said Lily as she went upstairs. Looking at his phone, Victor found it was about 6:30, so Arya should be here any moment now. It was 7 o'clock. Victor was sitting on a leather chair and drinking a cup of freshly brewed coffee, while the girls were sitting around him checking their backpacks and wondering why did Victor pack all those things in there. Aren't they going to spend just an afternoon there? When they asked Victor, he completely dodged their question, telling them that this is the way that this young master does things. Soon they heard the sound of a few cars parking in front of the mansion, then Hilda guided Arya into the living room where Victor was sitting. Good morning, young master, Arya said while giving Victor a cold stare. She didn't like how he forced her to come. Good morning, you look very good. An interesting choice though, he said as he inspected the camo hunting suit she was wearing. It suited her well. Maybe a little tight around the chest. What? I didn't have any other clothes suited for such a trip. You should have told me earlier. This one I wore when father took me hunting once, she said. With annoyance. That does not matter, is everything ready? He asked her. Yes, I got 2 vans, and we are all ready to go, she answered. Did you have breakfast? He asked her. Yes, on the road coming here, she spat back. Good. Let's go then, follow me, Victor said as he carried his backpack out of the mansion where the vans were parked. Chapter 46, The Mountain. The van waiting for them had 4 rows of seats and could fit 10 people easily. Victor walked to Arya and threw her a small backpack. Carry this for me. If anything were to happen to it, I will tell father about your disobedience. He said, then got into the van and found a place in the back long seat with Lily. While the girls sat in front of him, Arya clenched her teeth, then turned away and sat next to the driver as she wanted to get as far away from Victor as possible. Let's go then, we will be meeting with a few friends at the first bus stop before the mountain, so keep an eye for them, Victor said as he laid down and put his head on Lily's lap then closed his eyes. Arya looked at him with a piercing gaze then looked at Lily who seemed to be very happy with the situation. She seemed to be playing with Victor's hair. This girl has already fallen, she thought as she turned her head forward and gestured to the driver to go. He was trying hard not to look at what's happening in the back. The van was on the road for 20 minutes when Victor opened his eyes and asked the twins in a soft voice. So that Arya in the front would not hear him. I didn't get the chance to ask you yesterday, what was Tom's decision? Whom did he choose? He asked. Ah. The twins hesitated a little and then answered. Young master, he said both. Mina said while keeping her head down. What a pervert. Are you sure he meant that? He asked. Not really, he seemed hesitant, Mina said as she was thinking about Tom. He might be a pervert for real. So what are you going to do, would you both prefer to stay with me? He asked. The girls hesitated, they wanted one of them to escape servitude, but Tom's answer and attitude did not help at all. Okay, I will find a chance to ask Tom subtly later, this way we can get a clear answer, and you won't have to embarrass yourself anymore. He said with a warm smile. The twins nodded their heads in approval, they were really embarrassed yesterday. And their young master is always very understanding. Arya in the front was acting as if she heard nothing of the conversation between Victor and the twins, but her ears were pointing backward for a while now, and she was amazed by her brother's ability to scam little girls. Although she didn't know the full story, she got the gist of it. She was not that young and naive. I have to be careful, she thought, this young brother of mine is pure evil. At this moment Victor's phone rang, it was Margaret. Ah, hello Margaret, where are you now? Good, we would be there in about 10 minutes. Yeah, see you later. He said and hang up. They are waiting for us at the bus stop, so hurry up. He said to Arya, before returning to his blissful nap. Arya, who was at the front, nodded her head, then made sure to keep her attention on the road. Soon she saw 16 standing in front of a rural bus stop. Are those the friends he talked about? Miss Arya, those are our friends right there. Mina's voice came from the back confirming Arya's thoughts. So she quickly asked the driver to park the van near them, and the other van also stopped. Arya went down and greeted everyone. And introduced herself. Hello everyone, my name is Arya, I am Mr. Victor's secretary. Why don't you get into the back van and we shall get going? She asked. Ah, hello Miss Arya, my name is Tom. Tom immediately greeted her with a charming smile, making her blush a little. He had such an effect on women. Then he looked at the front van and saw the twins and Lily sitting there by themselves. So he waved his hands at them and said hi. Miss Arya, why don't we go to the front van? We can fit inside. Tom said. He wanted to sit next to that girl in the back. It would be a little cramped though, said Arya. Isn't there a large empty seat in the back? Asked Peter. Ah. Mr. Victor is currently napping there so it is not empty, said Arya with a little blush, making Tom and the others go forward and see that Victor was indeed asleep, happily drooling on Lily's lap. Ah, fuck that pervert, thought Tom. But he didn't give up, he became more determined not to let Victor stay alone with the girls. It's okay, the car would fit us and we could squeeze in, he insisted. Arya didn't know what to say, but the boy named George saved the situation. I can sit with Sarah on the other van, he said, wanting to spend some time with her as he has long wanted her to be his girlfriend. Arya looked at the girls searching for Sarah, and one of them, with a blushed face, nodded a little. Fine then, get in, let's get going, she said, then returned to her seat. Margaret quickly ran and took the seat in front of the twins with Anna, leaving Peter and Tom to sit behind the driver. And the convoy began to go up the mountain. "Young master, why did you request that we wear hiking clothes? You surprised me when you sent me that message," asked Margaret, who turned to the back to look at Victor. "I didn't tell you before, but I heard rumors about the mountain being a magical place with some secrets, so I thought it would be such a waste to just visit the movie set. Maybe we can go explore a little and get to know each other more while we are there," he said, making the girls feel excited. This young master is cool and courageous, they thought. "This entire mountain belongs to my family, you see," he continued. "My father brought it in the past. He thought it contained some treasure, but after searching for 2 months he found nothing, so he left it here to rot," he said, making the girls' eyes sparkle. "How rich do you need to be to buy a mountain then get bored with it?" The twins quickly got why he had them carry such packs. It seemed the young master had this idea from the start. He wanted to go treasure hunting. Tom glared at Victor in the back. "This pervert wants to take advantage of the girls in the mountains," he thought. "The mountain is very dangerous. I advise you not to do such things. Many hikers disappear there every year." "And father already said that there was nothing there," said Arya from the front. "Of course, I know, so going with me is optional, but not for you, big sister. You will come with me and the twins," he said, making her clench her jaw and ball her fist with anger. She knew that she had no choice. "Why do the girls have to go with you? They are free to make their own choice," Tom suddenly said, making Arya likes him more. While the twins flinch a little. I made a bet with the twins yesterday. And I won, so they agreed to serve me the entire day," Victor said with an evil smile. He had agreed on this with the twins earlier. "What bet? Is it true?" asked Tom as he looked at the nervous twins, who nodded their heads. "That's a secret," Victor said mysteriously. "If you are too scared to come with us, you are free to stay." He taunted him. "Who said I am scared? Of course, I would come. I won't let the girls suffer with you," he said as he swore not to leave the girls alone with such a man. As for the bet, he would ask the twins later, when they are alone. They would never hide anything from him. Arya looked at Tom and nodded her head. That's how a young man should be, not like her perverted brother. Chapter 47, Into the Woods. The van went up the mountain where green forest trees dotted both sides of the road. The environment around them got greener and richer the more they went up. This mountain had a special air around it, as if it was from another world. Soon the convoy, which has been going up for half an hour, stopped in a forest clearing, where the movie was being shot. This was also where the road ended, about halfway through the mountain, and no car can go any further as the terrain gets very rough. There, staff and employees were busy going around, making things ready, and checking on various pieces of equipment. The shooting didn't start yet. The vans parked beside the other equipment trucks after a security guard checked their identity. Arya got out of the van first, followed by everyone, and lastly Victor, who stretched his stiff limbs as Lily helped him straighten his clothes and comb his disheveled hair. "Hello, Miss Arya, I am Mark Silberberg, the director of this movie, and this is John Sigma, our star. There is no further need for introduction," a thin man with gray hair greeted Arya with a smile, then pointed to the muscular, handsome man beside him. "Hello, Mr. Silberberg, Mr. Sigma. I came here today with the CEO of our company, Victor White," she said as she introduced Victor and then everyone else as Victor's friends. "Hello, Mr. White, we are very pleased to meet you," they said to Victor. "I am happy to meet you too. Why don't you show us around?" Victor said. The director greeted everyone, then gave them a tour through the set. The shooting would need another hour to start, so he was not busy, and he wanted to get closer to Victor as he knew that this White family was super rich. Maybe he can convince him to produce the script he wrote. Victor, to the astonishment of everyone, did not act arrogantly but smiled and talked to the two men about the shooting like a real pro. That was until he ruined his image again. "Mr. Silberberg, where is Miss Mira? I wanted to have some private time with her," asked Victor as he looked around. Mira was the female star of this movie and was a new rising actor who had started acting just last year. The 2 low-budget movies she started in were both a huge success. But Victor didn't want her for her talent but her beauty and character. If he wanted to compare her to someone, that would be Lily. Lily had the calm and serene beauty of a spring fairy, but Mira was the opposite. She was as hot as a nuclear bomb. She was one of his girlfriends in the past, one of the faithful ones, and she was also a victim to one of his brother's schemes. Unfortunately, Mr. White, Mira would not be here. Her scenes have already finished filming last week, Mark said. "Too bad. Arya, find a suitable time for me to meet her. He told Arya, who shot him a look, then took a pen and scribed his command on her notebook. Why can't her brother be more content? He already has many pretty girls around him, she thought. Mr. White, how about my new idea? Can you help us with it? We have already been rejected by many production companies due to the huge cost of the project, so we propose a partial investment. He asked. How about I completely finance and produce that idea of yours? But I want the right to choose some of the actors. Victor interrupted Mark and said. In his previous life, those two men were very successful later, they broke records with every movie they partnered in. So he decided to invest in them now. Yes, of course, that would be perfect, said Mark with a big smile. Good, then let's find time later to sit down and have a talk about cooperation, he said. Arya, make an appointment for Mr. Silverberg next week, he told her, then returned to Mark. Now you have some shooting to attend to, and I and my friends would like to take a look around and meet some of the actors, so I would not bother you anymore, Victor said to Mark and walked away. He lost interest in the shooting after knowing that Mira was not here. He attended many shootings in his past life, so he didn't care. After touring the set for a while and getting some autographs for the girls, Victor stood up and looked at everyone. I am going to take a hike and try to explore a little of this mountain. You are free to follow me if you want, Victor said. I will stay with Sarah here, said George, who was holding the blushing Sarah's hand. They seemed to have bonded together earlier and wanted some time alone. Fine by me. Anyone else? Victor asked. Can I not go? Asked Arya. No, he answered blandly, making her pout. Margaret looked at Anna and nodded, conveying her intent to go. This hike would create a good chance for her to get closer to Tom or Victor, who was surrounded by many girls now. She does not mind sharing though, as long as she gets a place near a rich young master and some allowance maybe. As for Anna, she didn't want to be left alone with the lovebirds and reluctantly decided to go, as she could tell that Tom and Peter would definitely follow the twins who were serving that young master. Was it really just a bet? What did they bet on? She wondered. Tom and Peter went forward to the girls and offered to carry their backpacks for them, but they were coldly denied. The girls knew that the young master entrusted them with these things, and they didn't dare let anyone else carry them. Tom looked at Lily, who was carrying a large backpack with a pickaxe at its side. Then went to her and flashed his most dazzling smile. Miss, can I help you carry that bag? He asked. No, she stated coldly, then turned around and began to go after her young master, who began to venture into the woods. Tom hesitated a little, then followed with the rest of his friends. He wanted to ask for her name, but he didn't know who to ask without sounding like a pervert. But he really wanted to know. Margaret looked amused as she watched Tom's repeated failures. Unlike the others, she has been keeping an eye on everyone, and she knew that Tom, although looked like a gentleman, was as possessive and lecherous as any other man. She doesn't mind though, she was not that clean, and her childhood was not a pretty one. She dated many guys, some were much older than her, and came to know that most of them are just the same, perverts in sheep clothes. But like all girls her age, she yearned for a true lover. So she decided to find some rich young master to be her husband. At the very least, she would still be with a rich pervert. At first, she set her eyes on Tom, who became rich overnight. Then she met Victor, and that made her hesitant. She knew Tom from her childhood, knew him enough to read his dirty mind. He was always timid and introverted, but suddenly 1 year ago, after the summer break, he returned to school as a new person. He was more confident, charming, and most importantly rich. He said that he won the lottery, but Margaret was not that naive. She could tell that he held some secrets. Then she looked at Victor, who was leading everyone arrogantly. She only met him yesterday, but the feeling she got from him didn't match his image. He looked like an arrogant rich young master. But she had a feeling that this guy was a dangerous monster, and if she messed up with him, he would eat her whole. In addition to that, the twins seemed to be unnaturally obedient to him too. But when she looked at the way Lily looked at him, she seemed to find the feeling she was searching for, that of dependence and real trust. Maybe that guy had secrets too, who doesn't? Most importantly, he was filthy rich, far richer than Tom. What are you looking at? Asked her Peter, who has been pestering her for a while. She didn't like this guy. He is a petty person, and unlike Victor, Peter felt more like a fake young master who was trying too hard to wear a suit that did not fit him. Although he was rich, he was an idiot, and would probably spend all his parents' fortune sooner or later. Nothing, she said, and kept moving to catch up with the rest. She didn't want to stay alone with him. They had been walking in the woods for half an hour. The woods slowly turned from a somewhat normal mountain forest to a mythical place, The grass was still green and the trees were still tall, but the scene was different, but no one could tell why. Suddenly, Victor stopped after leading them into a very beautiful clearing filled with flowers, grass, and some boulders poking from the ground. "We will rest here," he said. They didn't know it, but Victor had reached his destination. Now he has to find a way to activate it. He left the group, who seemed to be a little tired, and began to inspect the ground, searching for the signs he read about. "What are you doing, young Ma, Victor?" asked Mina. "Don't mind me, I am just investigating this mountain. I am certain that I could uncover its big secret. That street oracle said that my luck would be at its peak today and the planets are aligning in my favor. Just stay close," he said arrogantly as he continued to look around, making the girls shake their heads. They started to look around them too. They were amazed by this place. It looked ethereal with all the blue and white flowers blooming under the sun. If there was really a secret on this mountain, it should be here. They got tired soon and found a place to sit down and rest. After a few minutes, Tom took the opportunity when the girls were admiring the flowers and slowly approached Lily, who was standing alone watching Victor go around and poke at random rocks with a wooden stick like a maniac. "May I know, what is your name, miss?" he asked like a gentleman. "Lily," she answered without looking at him. "Ah, Miss Lily, what a beautiful name. May I inquire about your relationship with Victor? You seemed very close to him," he asked with a smile. "He is into cold girls. He likes the feeling of conquering them." "I am his personal maid," she said blandly. "Ah, I see." What? He was surprised. No wonder she allowed Victor to sleep on her lap like that. He must be molesting her. And what is the difference between a normal maid and a personal maid? Could it be that? No, it can't be. That Victor must be using some evil means to control her. Tom didn't know why he hated Victor, nor that his very existence was screaming at him. Victor was a danger. But he, who fancied himself a hero, decided that he must save this miserable girl from her horrible fate, from the clutches of this evil young master. "Don't worry, Miss Lily, he tried to say but was interrupted. "Ha ha 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 ha, I found it. Look at this, doesn't it look like magic? Come look at it," yelled Victor, making everyone look at him, then go to look at what he had found. Victor was standing in front of a flat white rock, which had some foreign symbols on it. He was tapping at it with his stick in excitement. "Isn't this just some scribbles on a rock? Some kids have probably done it as a prank," said Peter, who poked his head from behind. But Tom, who was much more experienced and was watching carefully, saw that the symbols were changing, very slowly, like clouds in the sky of a summer day. They were definitely changing. Then they began to move faster and faster as Victor continued to tap at it. Tom, who realized something, suddenly yelled, "No, stop, get away from." But it was too late. The stone shattered as if it was made of glass, and a blue tide of light came out of it, sweeping over them and swallowing everyone in the clearing, including Arya, who was a little further away, then shrank again, leaving a blue revolving vortex where they stood before. It only took 2 seconds. Victor, who was being swept away, smiled and let the vortex swallow him as he looked at the blue shimmering screen above his head. Dungeon opened. "Congratulations, you are the one who discovered and opened this dungeon. Dungeon discovering reward. 1. Dungeon map. 2 10 free allocation points. 3. E-rank skill book, Spear Arts. Further rewards on clearing. Good luck." Chapter 48, Dungeon. Scholars wondered for years on the subject of dungeons. There is no definitive answer, but there was a prevalent theory. The dungeons are pockets of other worlds. They seem to invade ours by chance. If the world deemed them dangerous, it would confine them with a barrier. However, sooner or later the barrier's energy would deplete and a gate would open, allowing people in at first, and if it was left untreated, the barrier would disappear and what's inside would leave it to wreak havoc into the world. A dungeon was both a blessing and a curse. It contained dangerous monsters and precious metals and herbs. Once a dungeon was cleared of all the things the world deemed dangerous, it would collapse and merge with the world, revealing its treasures to the outside world to be mined. So the world's hidden powers would usually fight over them. But before it is cleared, people can come in but not out. That is not usually a problem, as once a dungeon was opened, only full player can get in, and whoever controls it would send a ready team of players. But sometimes if the dungeon opened where people were already standing, it would swallow them regardless of their status. Those people would then be granted a player status. It was called Dungeon Awakening. Many powers tried to send their youths who were not fully awakened to search for such dungeons so they may get a chance to advance. But finding a dungeon before it opens is easier said than done. It was much later after the reckoning when dungeons began to appear every other day that a method was created to forecast dungeons opening. And even then it was more of an art than a concrete science. At this time dungeons are rare, maybe one every month. The strong families and alliances started to fight for access rights long ago, but one day they stopped and formed the dungeon agreement after they lost all their forces in an S-rank dungeon. You can't know the dungeon's rank until you go inside. If it was dangerous, you could only tell when a dungeon has already swallowed legions of players without being cleared. The agreement was drafted officially to let unaffiliated players and all the powers have an equal chance to clear the dungeon and take whatever spoils they gained inside. But the truth was they needed cannon fodders to explore and act as shields. Once the dungeon closes, the precious land left behind is for whoever has enough power to own it and control it. And once it was owned, the others have to respect that. Victor knew that there was a dungeon here. This entire mountain was affected by its otherworldly energy, and just now he has forced it to open by just tapping on the rock hard with a stick. It was like a pimple that was about to burst, and he gave it the last nudge. Back then, it happened after a month of Victor arriving at Vane City. The dungeon burst open and was discovered by the filming crew, which altered the family. Thankfully this dungeon was already owned by them, so no other powers tried to take it from them. After sending a full team, the dungeon was quickly cleared, as it was a low-level dungeon. Victor only heard about it from his father. After the clearing, it seemed to have been opened by a wandering hiker. The players' team found him inside, hiding inside a cave. And when he came out, they offered him to join the family, but he refused. It was Victor's task back then to convince him, but he failed and could do nothing. The agreement states that players who awaken in the dungeons are free to choose their own destiny, and as long as they abide by the rules, no one can harm them. That hiker died later though when he revealed the secret of being a player to the press, so the same agreement that protected him killed him. And the media report was quickly changed to make the hiker a crazy man who committed suicide. The majority of players didn't want their existence to be exposed to the public. Now let's see, what do we have here, thought Victor as he looked at the wall surrounding him. It was a damp gray rock cave illuminated by a faint green light coming from algae that seemed to grow out of the cracks in the rocks. A typical wild dungeon. He was alone, everyone was separated, but Victor was not afraid as he had already given the girls enough supplies in the bag. As for the others, they can only count on their luck, but they would probably survive like that hiker. This was just an F-rank dungeon after all. The Goblin's General Dungeon. F-rank. Clear condition. Kill the Goblin General. He could see this screen when he entered the dungeon, and everyone else should see this too. So they would be stuck here until that general is dead. Once he is dead, the world rules are enough to eliminate all of the other goblins, and the dungeon would be considered clear after that. There was something else. On the corner of his vision, he could see the dungeon's map all the way to the boss's room and the exit. This was a part of his reward for opening it up. He only knew the position of a handful of other dungeons. But they are not ready to be opened yet. One of them is an S rank. There were some dots, some red and some blue on the map, which seemed to update every minute. He was a blue dot, so he knew that the red ones are the goblins while the blue ones were humans. There seemed to be only 2 secluded blue dots. The others has formed 2 groups and were staying in their positions, probably assessing the situation. There were no goblins near them, so they should be safe for now. He brought the twins and Arya here on purpose, wanting to make them players. Especially Arya, he did this to save her life. When the family investigates Jacob, they would probably discover that she aided him, but that is not the problem, because Arya had another secret, one that caused the family to kill her when they discovered it back then. This time, however, she would be a player. And killing a player in the family would require the patriarch's approval. That would grant him enough time to save her. Wait a minute. He told himself, why are there 10 blue dots? The only ones inside the dungeon should be him, Lily, Arya, the twins, Tom, Peter, Anne, and Margaret. Those are 9. That dot was the closest to him and moving in his direction, so he decided to investigate it. If it was any of the girls, he would be able to help. He activated his disguise skill, hiding his presence, and walked towards the dot. It took him 1 hour of walking in the maze-like dungeon to see the shadow of a man dressed in black. This was not someone he knew. He wore a black mask and seemed to be a player, so Victor appraised him. Name, Olaf. Level, 31. Abnormal status, slave weak. Class, spy. Authority, 4. Strength, 33. Intelligence, 32. Agility, 50. Luck, 13. Charm, 8. Order, 11. Skills. Shadow Cloak, A. Critical Dagger, B. Follow Trace, E. Hide Presence, F. If Victor didn't see him on the map, he might not have discovered him. That Shadow Cloak skill was similar to Lily's, it only works if you didn't know you were there. He observed the man for a few moments, and from his movements art, he could tell that he belonged to his family. But was he sent by his father or the other factions? Does it matter? No. Victor didn't like to be spied on. This guy must have followed him from the mansion, and that meant he had a car and maybe a partner, but only this guy entered the dungeon with them. Victor showed no hesitation as he took out a dagger he bought yesterday and approached the unsuspecting man. It was as easy as slaying a chicken. The man felt something was wrong. He felt a strange airflow against his skin. He was not alone here. He should be careful, his enemy. He didn't continue that thought. He just felt a cold sensation in his throat and he stopped breathing the next moment. Victor quickly inspected the corpse's back, searching for the family's tattoo, and there it was, a tattoo of 2 daggers over a round shield with a lion's face. This is defiantly not his father's, it was them. They must have sent him to see what happened with Nick, and maybe to gather some incriminating evidence. He searched the man's body and retrieved the recording device. It was an advanced one with many features. Victor didn't try to open it as he knew he didn't have the tools required here. He just used all his strength to crush it, including the memory chip. He stood there watching as the body dissolved by the dungeon's power, leaving only the clothes. So he quickly used his dagger to create some battle damage on them, then left the area with his disguise on. An hour later he reached a stone hall where he noticed 3 red dots were walking nearby. Victor, who was hidden, could easily see their green skin, hooked noses, and large red eyes. They were goblins, one of the weakest sentential monsters. They wore makeshift armor made of some kind of leather. 2 of them had stone knives while the last one had a wooden bow and arrows. He has dealt with those a lot in the past, and he knew their weaknesses. Their defense was that of a human child, but their attacks were deadly. So he approached the one walking behind and pushed his dagger into his heart. He left it there and backed away as the 2 others began to look around. They thought it was a thrown dagger, so they split up to hide behind big boulders and began to look deep into the cave, so they didn't notice when Victor leisurely smacked them with a large stone on their heads. It only took him a minute to kill one and knock out the 2 others. With his disguise, a low-leveled goblin that didn't have attacks would not discover him, so he had no rivals here. Looking at the unconscious goblin at his feet, he smiled as he took out the ring of the minor masters he stole from Nick. That idiot used it on humans, but its unique power is that it allows a player to not only enslave a target but also communicate with it, so you would be able to use it on any sentient being, including goblins. Now he had all the tools he needed and can concentrate on his master plan. Dealing with Tom. He smiled as he reached out for his backpack. Where did he put that pickaxe again? SHT, he forgot it with Lily. Chapter 49, Awakening. Arya could feel the hard rock floor under her body when she regained her consciousness. She heard the sound of someone arguing, so she opened her eyes and looked around. Where am I? What happened? It looked like she was in some kind of a cave. Tom was standing there arguing with Lily, who gave him a stubborn look as she crossed her hands and faced him. Miss Lily, I didn't expect you to be a player too. I know you want to rush to find that guy Victor, and I appreciate your commitment. But this place is a maze and the best way to save everyone is to clear the dungeon. We have to start searching for the boss's room. If Victor is smart, he would be trying to do the same thing. So we will meet him sooner or later. You don't need to go around searching blindly and alone in a dungeon. That is both pointless and dangerous, he said to Lily, who seemed a little convinced. I have to ask you about this though, he said seriously to Lily. Do you or Victor belong to an overseer power? He asked. Lily did not answer, and he took it as a sign of approval, so he frowned a little. It seems his hunch was on the spot that Victor, although seemed arrogant, he gave Tom a dangerous feeling. And what kind of a young master has a player mate? He must be one of them. And most likely a player too. Then answer me this, do you belong to the Von Astrom family? He asked with an obvious fury in his eyes, making Lily, who didn't want to speak with him, hesitate a little. He had the same look of hate she had when she wanted to kill Guy, so she chose to compromise and answer him. No. We have no relationship with them, but I can't tell you which power we belong to without the young master's permission, she said, then sat down and began to inspect the contents of her backpack. Arya, who was eavesdropping, felt that their conversation was over, so she slowly sat down and began to inspect the environment around her. But before she could do that, someone groaned beside her. It was Peter, who had just regained consciousness. "Where are we? What the hell was that, and where is everyone?" he asked as he sat down and began to look around. "Was it a cave-in? Did we fall?" he asked as he checked his phone to find it without a signal. Tom looked at Peter and Arya, who were panicking a little. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "No need to panic, we are in a dungeon, one similar to that in video games. Look over your heads to the left," Tom asked, making Arya frown, as this was not the right time to tell a joke. But when she looked up, she quickly gasped in astonishment. There was a blue shimmering screen in her field of vision. It just came into focus when she looked at it. "What is this? A log of some sort?" she thought. "Warning. You have entered a dungeon. Initializing dungeon awakening procedure. Welcome, player. Analyzing input data finished. You have successfully awakened as a player. Your attributes have been automatically assigned by the system. Name: Arya White. Level: 0. Class: Merchant. Authority: 2. Strength: 15. Intelligence: 23. Agility: 13. Luck: 14. Charm: 30. Order: 10. Skills. System store access: Level 0. Player market access: Level 0. Basic shield: E. Setup complete. "What the FCK is that?" said Peter as he looked up with wide eyes. "Is this for real? What does this mean?" Arya asked Tom and Lily. She didn't believe her eyes. Tom hesitated a little, then began to explain the existence of players to the astonished Arya and Peter. "You have now awakened as players. Think of it as a video game. But it is real. Now you will have superpowers and will be able to level up by killing monsters and doing missions. The status screen is where you are assigned a class and attributes. Since you were awakened by a dungeon, you did not get to choose your class. The system automatically assigned you one. Try it yourself. Interact with your status screen. You can see all kinds of explanations on every attribute you look at. You can also try your skills," he said, making Peter ponder a little and start to explore his status screen. Arya needed a few seconds to absorb all this information. Dungeons. Players. Awakening. That last word, she heard it before. Wasn't it the one used by the family to describe the ceremony? Could it be? She thought of her brother as she decided to inquire about this matter from him later. She quickly looked at her status screen and started to interact with it. Indeed, Tom was saying the truth. How can this be? This is not scientific, she thought. "Ha ha ha, that is truly amazing. Is this for real?" said Peter as he pinched himself. It hurts. Now I am a superhero and I would get a lot of chicks to like me," he said, laughing, making Lily and Arya look at him with disgust. Tom ignored him and continued talking. "I have been a player since last winter, and it seems that Miss Lily is a player too," he said, making Peter and Arya look at her. Lily didn't answer, just nodded her head, then turned her head to look into the darkness of a nearby passage as if she was searching for someone. Tom didn't care, as he knew that Lily was looking for that guy Victor, and he hoped that Victor would perish here. He looked at Peter and Arya as he continued his explanation. "As I told you, this world has many people who awaken the power to be players, just like video games. And it has dungeons and monsters too. And we are in such a dungeon. Luckily this one is a low-ranking dungeon, as it seems to be a goblin's cave. We would be able to clear it ourselves with some effort. I have been in 2 raids before," Tom said proudly. "Why no one talks about these things? Shouldn't players be famous?" Peter asked. "Well, this world has certain powers. They call themselves the Overseers. They are composed of 5 families, 3 sects and 1 organization. They have more power than most countries and forbade anyone from disclosing information about the existence of the system and players," Tom answered as he clenched his finger. He seemed to hold some grudge. "I have to warn you though, never reveal anything. People died for this before," he added, making Arya and Peter cool down a little. "Now I need to know your classes and authority," he said. "I am an archer, and I have 2 authority. Is that good?" asked Peter. "Yes, a fighting class is always good. We will have to find you a bow and some arrows. Most players get 2 authority when they awaken, so that is normal," Tom said. Then he turned to Arya. "And you, Miss Arya? Don't tell him. A player shouldn't reveal his class and attributes without a good reason. Your skills are your secret weapon." Suddenly Lily warned Arya before she could answer, making Tom look at her with an inspecting gaze. She was smarter than what he expected. But that did not matter. He turned to face Arya and convince her. "Don't get me wrong, Miss Arya, I just wanted to know about your class so that I can find a suitable role in the fight for you. We might need your help as our only way out of here is by defeating that goblin general," he said with a charming smile. Arya didn't know what to do, but after seeing Tom's smile she chose to tell him. She didn't have a powerful class anyway, she thought. "I have a merchant class," she said, making Lily frown a little. If Victor was here he would nod his head as if he expected this result. Even a business genius like Arya would fall for Tom's smile. That is how strange the effect of science is on normal people. It was as if they become NPCs in front of them. So unlike Lily, whose fate was already tied firmly to Victor's, Arya didn't feel anything abnormal when she told him. "That is good," Tom nodded. "While you would not be very helpful in the fight, you can use your skills to buy remedies and health potions for us," he said before turning to Lily. "Miss Lily, I really need to know your class to incorporate it into my plan. This is very crucial for our success," he said in a serious tone. When he came to, he found that Lily was awake too. Unlike the other two who were still unconscious, he knew that they were being awakened as players. When did she awaken and what are her powers? He really wanted to know. He has pretty much confirmed that she belonged to some power, but that won't stop him. He will get her sooner or later, he thought as he looked at her. This is very important. He pressured her. "Tell me yours first," Lily asked, surprising him. She was not that easy to manipulate. "I am a warrior," he said, hiding his true class. Like every smart player, you never know when your best friend would betray you for some treasure, especially in a dungeon where there is no one watching. "Ah, me too, I am a dagger warrior," said Lily as she took out a black dagger from her bag, acting as if she was a warrior like him. Tom looked at her but said nothing. He didn't know if she was telling the truth or not, but during the coming fights, everything would become clear. "Where do we go now?" asked Peter as he looked at the branching tunnels surrounding them. "Nowhere, we should check our equipment and our status first. We don't know how long we would be staying here or when we would get a chance to rest again. Do you have anything useful?" he asked. Peter shook his head, then looked at Arya and Lily, who were carrying big backpacks. "What about you?" he asked Arya, who seemed far friendlier than Lily, who was still hiding her mouth behind that semi-transparent veil and was giving Tom and Peter some cold stares. Arya wanted to answer but she didn't know what was in it. This bag was given to her by Victor, who didn't explain anything. So she quickly opened the bag and inspected its inside. It was full of food bars and some water bottles. But upon further searching, she found that it had a rolled sleeping bag in the bottom, and a medical kit too. Arya was surprised. Why did her brother pack these things? Did he anticipate such a situation? Or was he planning to go on a camping trip? "I have a sleeping bag, some food, and a medical kit," she said. Tom nodded his head. It was not unheard of to bring such things when hiking in the wild. Then he turned to Lily. "What about you, Miss Lily?" "The same as Arya's," she answered without even looking. "Why is there a pickaxe poking from your bag then?" asked Peter. "Private matters," she answered, but sounded unconvinced. "Did you or Victor know about this dungeon?" Arya suddenly asked her. She had to know. Did her brother bring them here on purpose? Why would he bring a pickaxe if he just went hiking? "It can't be," Tom said. "A dungeon can't be found before its opening. Maybe Victor heard some rumors about the mountain like we did and wanted to try his luck," he said, and he turned out to be quite lucky, he thought silently. "But that pickaxe," said Peter. "It's useless here. He probably wanted to dig for some treasure," said Tom as he stretched his hand to Lily. "Can I borrow it?" he asked. Lily hesitated for a second but then gave it to him. She also wanted to know if this thing would work here and if the young master brought them here on purpose. Tom took the pickaxe and began to hit a nearby wall with it. At first, a lot of rocks were smashed under his inhuman strength, but after digging for 2 minutes it began to produce yellow sparks when it impacted the rocks and it failed to make a dent in them. All the dungeon's walls are protected by the world rules, so after digging for a while you will reach a limit, which can't be dug before the dungeon is cleared," he said as he returned the pickaxe back to Lily, deliberately touching her little hand in the process. She shot him a warning glare as she quickly retracted her pretty hand, and carefully returned the pickaxe to the backpack. Then handkerchief to wipe her hand. Tom did not mind but smiled a little. Girls her kind needs a lot of time to conquer, he thought, not knowing that Victor conquered her in 3 seconds. "After a little rest we will start searching the dungeon. The boss here is the Goblin General. He should be in a goblin settlement. So we just have to find some of them and follow their trails. They would probably leave some tracks," Tom said as he looked into the dim tunnel in front of him. wondering what kind of rewards he would get for clearing this dungeon. Chapter 50, First Kiss. Lily carefully observed the goblin which was unsuspectingly approaching her. She got her dagger ready and held her breath. Shadow Cloak skill hit her body but not her sound, and in these silent caves any small noise would get you discovered. As the goblin approached her, she could see his ugly look and sharp fangs in the dim light. Now or never, she told herself when the goblin passed by her. She pounced at him and struck him in the neck where Tom told her the goblin's main artery should be. She used her penetrating dagger skill so that she would cut through the goblin's thick skin easily. The goblin didn't make a sound as its red eyes dimmed slowly. It was dead. Lily watched it as it turned into dust, leaving a stone dagger and a small red gem, which she quickly collected. According to Tom, these gems are used to create medicine and fix artifacts. They can be sold to merchants for a good profit. Her young master was a merchant too, so he would probably like these things, she thought before frowning as she remembered him. They have been in here for 24 hours already, and she did not find a trace of him. Is he doing fine? Does he need any help? She wanted to venture alone and find him, but she knew that such actions would be stupid. Her group was now resting in a chamber with a single entrance. Tom called it a safe area. It was easy to defend and hard to attack. She was tasked with guarding the entrance of the tunnel for the next 2 hours while they rested. She can't leave them. While she could easily get rid of lonely goblins, and 2 goblins won't be hard, however, any more than that would be dangerous. They have encountered groups of 5 goblins yesterday, but thanks to Tom's instructions they were able to safely get rid of them. He also taught Arya and Peter how to fight and defend themselves. Tom is not that bad after all, she whispered her thoughts. She quickly shook her head. Why was she thinking about Tom? Her young master was the only one in her heart. What was that? She thought as she saw a shadow approaching her from the dark. She activated her area inspection skill as she got her dagger ready. It was a strange monster. It had the structure and height of a man, but it had a black face, white disheveled hair and gray muddy rags covered its body. And the way it walked was very arrogant, as if the dungeon was its own playground, just like the way her young master would walk. What? You don't recognize your young master anymore? The monster asked, mimicking her young master's voice. Wait, isn't that the young master? She thought. Ah. Young master. Lily screamed and ran into Victor's arms, and put her head into his chest, so that he could embrace her tightly. I was very worried about you, young master, but I couldn't leave and search for you, she said as tears began to fall from her eyes. I am fine, I just had some things to do, he said as he patted her head. What happened to you? Young master, why are you covered with all this dust and mud? She asked him as she inspected his body. That's a long story, and I don't need your companions to discover my existence, so keep your voice down, he said, dodging her question as he checked the map to make sure that they were still in their place. Ah, sorry, she whispered. Tell me about everything that happened the moment you entered the dungeon, he said. Lily began to tell him about how she stayed with the others, how they awakened, about her conversation with Tom, and how they began to hunt for goblins as they searched the dungeon, making Victor frown when he heard that Arya was a merchant. But then he smiled. He can incorporate this into his plan. Thankfully he didn't intend to use a normal poison on Tom, as those can be healed quickly with a healing pill. What he is planning to use was considered medicine by the system, so system skills and medicines would not heal it. In his past life, it was used by one of the imperial concubines on the emperor. He heard that story from a close friend who worked at the palace and was responsible for the investigation. He thought silently about random things as he continued to listen to Lily speak about Tom's achievements. Tom taught us many things, he said. He was in 2 raids before she finished her tale, gaining herself a heavy slap on the butt. Ah, young master, why? She asked. Did you notice that for the last 15 minutes you have been doing nothing but praising that Tom? Weren't you just mumbling about him when you met me? He asked with a smile, making Lily shiver a little, then lower her head in shame. He has been watching her when she killed that goblin. He wanted to make sure that she was alone. I am sorry, young master. I don't know why, I just have this strange feeling about him, but I only have the young master in my heart, she said as a few tears dropped from her eyes. Victor knew exactly what was she feeling. It was Tom's fate beginning to affect her. She wants to like that Tom, but her connection with Victor was still stronger and was helping her resist. Don't worry, she heard her young master say as he pinched her chin and removed her veil on her mouth before kissing her red lips softly. Lily froze in her place. She didn't expect that and didn't know what to do, but before she could savor the feeling of his lips, they left hers. She wanted more. He looked at her with a smirk and made Lily quickly hide her blushed face with her hand. It was as red as a tomato. This was her first kiss. "This is not the right place nor the right time," he said as he patted her little head. "I already activated my disguise skill, so they would not feel my existence, but we can't take much time," he continued. He needed to do this to break Tom's spell on her. And it seemed to have worked as he could feel the fate thread between him and her becoming more relaxed. "Now, quickly. I need a change of clothes. Do you have that backpack?" he asked, waking her up from her trance. Lily quickly reached to a nearby crevice and took the backpack out. She didn't leave it with her companions as she didn't want them touching her young master's things. So she kept it near her when she was not carrying it. Victor took it from her, then grabbed some clothes from it to change into while Lily guarded him. The dungeon was a dangerous place. "It's okay, there are no enemies so you can relax," he said with an evil smile. 9 goblins were waiting in the shadows. Those were his newly acquired slaves. "Young master, do you need that pickaxe?" she asked him. "No, not anymore," he said as he remembered the suffering he had to go through to achieve his goal. He did have the goblins to assist though. "Now listen carefully, I need your help for the next plan," he said as he packed the dirty clothes in the bag. "After about 2 hours, a herd of goblins will attack you. Just stay near Arya and protect her, and make sure not to kill any of them until Tom is injured. You can attack and kill them all after that," he said. He would not be needing those guys anymore. "The young master plans to kill Tom?" Lily asked nervously. Tom has helped her a lot, she didn't want him to die. "No, he will live and he will leave this dungeon without a speck of dust. It is just a little punishment for hitting on you," he said as he closed the bag and stood up. He felt the urgent need to get rid of that Tom. His effect on Lily was very strong. "I will not travel with you as I have to find the twins and guide them. They don't have a mentor like Tom. I will meet you at the boss's room," he said as he patted Lily's hair. She grabbed the corner of his shirt with her little hand. She didn't want to be separated from her young master again. "Don't worry, I am stronger than you, and I will be fine. Just keep everything about our meeting a secret and act natural. You guys would need another day to reach the goblin general, so make sure to rest well. No goblins will approach this area until the attack. And don't worry about me, I will be spending my times with the girls and they will pamper me well," he said with an evil smile. "One of your companions seemed to be coming, so quickly put your veil on. I need to hide. See you tomorrow," he said as he quickly disappeared in the darkness before Lily could say anything. He was intentionally flaming her jealousy so that she would keep thinking about him and not pay attention to Tom. Soon footsteps could be heard, and Peter, who woke up to pee, passed by Lily, who was watching Victor's disappearing shadow in the darkness. "Miss Lily, sorry to disturb you, but it's nature's call," he said. She didn't answer, just kicked his ass, sending him face down into the dirt. "You stay and guard here. I will go get some sleep," she said as she grabbed her backpack and headed towards the safe area. Leaving Peter wondering, how did I upset her? He thought, not knowing that he had just ruined a young maiden's secret affair. Chapter 51, Tom. Tom was sitting with his back to the cold cave wall. He was watching the sleeping Arya and Lily. Both of them had sleeping bags, while Peter and he had to sleep on the ground. It was a shame because he could not get a good look at their bodies. If he were still the guy he was 2 years ago, he would never get the chance to stay with such girls in a lifetime. He still remembers the day he became a player when his grandmother asked him to clean the attic where he accidentally broke that strange vase. A red light flew from it and entered his body, giving him the chance to become a player. At first, he did not understand what it meant, but it only took him a few days to get to know his powers. So he headed to a nearby mountain, where he camped for a few days and started to unleash and train his skills while planning what to do next. He asked himself many questions there. Was he the only one? Are there others? Should he reveal his powers? What can I do with this? How can I make some money? There were not many jobs requiring superpowers in modern society. Not clean ones anyway. He stayed perplexed for a while until he met her. When he saw her, she was running away in the woods, and some men in black were perusing her. At first, he didn't want to intervene as those men looked dangerous. But when he saw her face clearly, he stepped forward to save her life. She was beautiful, the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. That was until he met Lily though. He was able to defeat the 3 offenders easily. He took them by surprise. The first one was killed quickly. Then he activated his berserker skill and finished the other two. This was the first time he killed someone, and he should have felt something, but he didn't have the time to do that. The girl who clung to him was poisoned by a strong aphrodisiac, and she was barely conscious. He didn't know what to do. But the girl did not give him a chance to think, and he wasn't really against it. So that night, she made him a real man. The next day, when he woke up, the girl was still there looking at him with an inspecting look. After some hesitation, she introduced herself as Nova von Astrom. According to her, her family was one of the world's 5 ruling families. They wanted to marry her to some young master as a political maneuver. Although she knew that this was her destiny a long time ago, she did not want to be married off to some pervert. So she took refuge with a close friend. But as it turned out, that friend was only using her. He wanted to rape her, ruining the prospect of a political marriage for her family and angering the forces behind her fiancé. She was able to escape thanks to a talisman she had, but she was already poisoned by then, and that guy's men were able to find her quickly. That was when she met Tom. Tom was surprised by her story. He didn't fully believe her. How can the world be ruled by 5 families? He decided to ask her if she heard the term player, and to his astonishment, she turned out to be a player too, much weaker than him, but still a player. So he told her his story. She was very pleased with him and decided to teach him all about the players and their rules and how the world and system worked. She didn't dare return to her family after losing her virginity, as that would put them in a tight spot with her fiancé's family. So they stayed together on that mountain for a week. She didn't let him touch her again though, as she was very shy. But he knew that she didn't hate him. He was taking his time with her. Their happy days ended when her family found them. She called the man who came to get her brother. He was smiling at first, but when he learned from her that she was no longer a virgin, his face became as cold as ice. He immediately restrained her with some kind of a magical tool, then turned to Tom. He was going to kill him. But when his fist burning with blue flame was next to Tom's face, Nova, despite her shackles, stood in the way and took that hit for him. He could still remember how she hugged him with blood coming out of her mouth, and how she put that tattered talisman in his pocket and activated it for him. Her last words were, "Don't look for me." When he regained consciousness, he was in a valley a little far away from the mountain, so he returned there quickly to find it empty. Just a patch of blood on the ground remained where she saved him. After that, he decided that he will grow to be stronger and save her someday, so after he returned to the city, he used the internet and quickly found the Players Book website Nova told him about. This was one of the ways rogue players connected and shared information. He began to investigate about the players' world and was surprised to find that many of them had many wives. This seemed to be a common practice. They have the power and money anyway. There was an online market there too where all kinds of artifacts and gems were being traded. He didn't have any coins, so he had to find a way to earn some. And one of those ways was raiding a dungeon. He was able to participate in 2 public dungeon raids and one he secretly discovered after that. There he was able to level up and gain some experience and treasures. And by selling some of them, he was able to amass a substantial amount of money. By the time he returned to school, he was no longer that poor boy. He is a rich man now. And his worldview has broadened. He will no longer allow any girl he likes to escape from his grasp. And when he becomes strong and saves Nova, she will have a lot of younger sisters to help her serve him. He already has 3 lovers. And 5 other potential future wives in the oven. Now how do I proceed? He thought as he looked at the 2 pretty sleeping girls in front of him. Arya had already started liking him, but she was a little older, and he had to take his time with her as she was not naive. As for Lily, she didn't treat him as coldly anymore. That was progress. But he can't touch her yet as she belonged to one of the families. He had to make her abandon them herself. Too bad he didn't meet the twins here. This was the perfect situation for picking up girls, he thought. As for Margaret and Anna, he didn't see those 2 as targets, they were just friends. Anna was not pretty enough, while Margaret was a slut. When Lily returned here, he was still asleep. She must have left the guarding duty to Peter. But that guy was unreliable, so Tom stood up and went to check on him. Peter and George were his childhood friends. And were people he trusted. When Tom saw Peter, he was standing there playing with his phone. There seemed to be no goblins around. "Do you still have power in it?" asked Tom. They have already been here for a day. Of course, this is the ZX 5200 model. It has enough energy to power a house. Do you know how much I paid for it? It is. Peter began to brag like usual. I shouldn't have asked, thought Tom. It was 1 hour later when Lily and Arya joined them. They seemed to have rested well. We need to proceed. I have already confirmed our path as the goblins have left signs of the walls to guide them if they got lost. We can use those, he said as he pointed to a strange symbol on the wall, then he stepped forward letting the others follow. The path was dim lit as usual, and they didn't see any goblins for half an hour. Suddenly, Tom had a weird feeling, as if he was being watched. He stopped and started to look around. Is there a problem? Asked Peter. I can't tell, just a feeling. Be on your guard, replied Tom as he advanced slowly with his trusted steel dagger in his hand. He was more of a sword guy, but he can't carry one all the time. He needs to buy one of those expensive Cosmos bags. He thought as he approached a dark patch in the tunnel. If there was an ambush, it would be here. Sure enough, the next moment, 8 goblins sprung from behind the rocks around them. They were well hidden and camouflaged with the terrain. Their heads and bodies were full of dirt and mud. Keep to the formation and fight, shouted Tom as he slashed at the first goblin, which seemed to have gained him a lot of hate from the others as 5 of them focused on him, leaving the rest of his team with 1 each. He attacked swiftly and managed to kill 3 of them when he felt a freezing chill in his back. This was his intuition. He made a mistake. There was a 9th goblin still in hiding. He wanted to turn and avoid its attack, but the other goblins suddenly threw themselves at him, ignoring their lives. So he had to defend on both sides. He was barely able to avoid that fatal attack, but that sneaky goblin was able to stab him in his thigh. Tom quickly killed him, but another one in the front was about to pierce him when Lily sprung out of nowhere and helped him fend the attack and kill the goblin. With her help, he was able to finish all the goblins quickly. Sorry for the delay. I had to protect Arya, she said. Tom nodded his head and smiled as he felt that Lily was getting slightly warmer around him. It's okay, I understand, he said. I just got a little careless and was injured, so. He yelled suddenly, startling his team. What happened? Asked Arya in concern as she watched Tom sit on the ground in pain. Tom didn't respond but just tore a part of his pants to look at his injury. It was a superficial wound. That stone dagger was not that sharp and didn't do much damage. His thigh did not hurt, it was his balls. The pain was as if someone was hitting him there with a brick. He was poisoned probably. But who would create such an evil poison? Chapter 52, Evil Poison. What an evil poison indeed, thought Victor as he hid and watched Tom scream in pain. This thing was used on a level 2000 emperor. He asked all the court healers and alchemists to find a cure for it. But all failed. No system object could heal it as it was a strange combination of traditional and system materials. In the end, the emperor had to release that concubine who boldly confessed that it was her doing. She also forced him to compensate her for the emotional injury he caused when he killed her parents and forced her to marry him. That was not a small amount. She made a sworn promise to give him the cure after 3 years and then ran away. The emperor could only look at her leaving with resentment. He was one of the strongest players in the world and was made a laughingstock by a little girl. He wanted to scream at her as she left, but could only utter a little yell as his nuts started to hurt him again. After 3 years, the poison and the method to cure it were secretly sent to the palace. No one knew who sent it or where it came from. What truly surprised them was the simplicity of this poison. Its existence opened the door to an entirely new field of toxicology and medicine. Sadly, the emperor didn't live to see that auspicious day, as he was deposed by his brother from the opposing faction. He forced him into a challenge for the throne and won easily as he decapitated the emperor, who had to stop in the middle of the fight to hold his crouch after he saw one of his brother's wives stripping in the audience. As the pain would only occur to him when he gets aroused or overly excited, like when Tom looked at Lily just now. The version Victor used on Tom was a light variant of the poison, so it would not make him distracted, but it would still hurt a lot. Victor still needs him to clear the dungeon and fall into the big trap he spent the previous day setting up. Now he only needs to wait and hope that the trap he prepared works. Getting rid of a scion was always a dangerous job as the world tends to protect them from deadly situations. If the poison he just used was deadly, his attack would have never landed on Tom, or worst, maybe a cave-in would cause his death before he could order that goblin to attack. The only one who could confidently kill a scion is another one of them. So Victor had to prepare some nice cards. He stayed there and watched as Tom took out a healing pill from his inner pocket and put it in his mouth. After taking the pill, the wound on his leg healed quickly to the astonishment of Peter and Arya, who couldn't hold herself and touched Tom's thigh where the wound used to be. It was really healed. But Tom, who looked at her slender hand touching his bare skin, could only scream as the pain attacked him again. Tears began to fall from his eyes. Who would create such an evil poison? This thing was the nemesis of all men. He needs to find a cure fast. Then he remembered something and looked at Arya. "Miss Arya, you are a merchant, right?" he asked. "Ah, yes," she replied. "You see, I seem to have been poisoned. Does the store you have access to have any antidotes?" he asked with a painful expression. Arya quickly operated her skill and looked at the store, and indeed it had such potion. "It has one, but I don't have enough to pay for it. It would cost 1,000 coins, she said. Such antidotes were expensive. For a 1,000 coins, she needed to kill a 1,000 goblin to get such amount, as the red gems can be exchanged for a 1 coin each. That is for novice merchants though. As her level grows, also would be her discounts and special offers. Like how Victor buys whatever he wants at a 50% discount. "I will pay for it myself," said Tom as he operated his screen to send 1,000 coins to Arya. She quickly entered the store and placed an order for the basic antidote, but it didn't work. "It is not working," she said. "There is a screen telling me that all shop operations were locked." Tom frowned a little. Such a thing never happened to him before, but he heard that some dungeons have some weird rules. So this was probably one of them. "That's fine," he said as he received the coins Arya sent back. Neither of them realized that Victor, who was watching from the shadows, used one of his merchant administrator's functions to lock Arya's store for 24 hours. He can only use this lock once a month per player. But he wanted to plant a seed of mistrust for Arya in Tom's heart. "Can you walk?" Peter asked Tom with concern. "Yes, I should be fine," replied Tom, who didn't dare look at the girls anymore and started to walk in front of them after collecting the gems from the goblin's remains. "Ah, Tom, didn't you say you would protect us from the back? Why are you moving in the front?" asked Arya naively. "It's better this way," he answered with tears in his eyes. He does not dare walk in the back. He needed to clear this dungeon fast and get out to find a healer. He had just discovered that the pain only sticks him when he looks at a beautiful girl, and as he gets more excited, the pain in his balls would grow exponentially. How can he touch a woman if this poison or curse was not cleared? Peter felt strange, but he quickly followed after Tom with Arya. As for Lily, she looked around searching for her young master, but she didn't find him and could only sigh and follow after her team. She felt that her young master was a real bully. But she had no idea to what degree. Victor smiled as he watched them leave, then looked at the map to locate the twins' group. They were about 3 hours' walk away from his location. He sighed as he started to walk in their direction while killing some random goblins on the way. A young master like him should be resting on the lap of some beauty. He needed to get more hands to do the dirty work for him. Chapter 53, Margaret. Margaret held a deep secret. When she was young, her uncle, whom she lived with after her parents died, molested her. He later made her serve other men for money. But luckily for her, he was soon arrested and she was saved. But even after she moved out to live with her aunt, old nightmares still haunted her when she slept. Many of her friends considered her a slut. Margaret knew that well, but she didn't care. She understood the darkness of this world much better than any of them. She knew what she wanted, and she would do whatever she needed to get it. Right now, she was stranded with the twins and Anna in this weird dungeon, as the screen said. They have been here for 1 day already. They were in a cave chamber with only one tunnel connecting it, making it easy to defend. They found this place a few hours ago. She was on guard duty now, sitting next to a tunnel entrance, holding a steel dagger. The twins and Anna slept soundly behind her. Luckily the cave was not cold, and they had 3 sleeping bags. The twins had 2 in their backpacks, and she carried 1. When Victor sent her a message this morning, she read his dirty mind easily. He was probably intending to force them to camp the night in the forest. So she brought a sleeping bag she had, just in case. When she saw the bags he and the twins were carrying this morning, she affirmed her guess. But not even in her wildest imagination, she would have guessed that they would be lost in a video game dungeon. How can such things exist in real life? Is this a dream? What are these player and class things? Did they think she was that naive? She thought it was a prank first, a very costly one. But after being hit by that goblin and saw blood coming from her arm, she realized this was not a trick nor a dream. When she woke up, she was with the twins, while Anna was nearby. They hurried to her when she was screaming after seeing a goblin. Margaret hurried to save Anna and used her bag to hit him, but it was more nimble than she expected and it used that stone dagger to slash at her. It looked like a toy, but it was not. That thing was sharp. She was saved by the twins. They held steel daggers in their hands and hacked at that goblin, killing him. They seemed to have received some kind of martial arts training. They were not that good though, but much better than her. What happened after that surprised her even more. Anna hesitated for a moment, and instead of using the medical kit she had, she anxiously touched the wound, making that nasty slash mark begin to heal at a visible speed after a few seconds. Margaret looked at the red line on her arm that was barely visible now. It was still healing. Like magic. Everything here was like magic. She didn't want to believe it, as she was a realist. She never liked fiction. But the truth is in plain sight in front of her. That status screen shimmered endlessly as if it was taunting her. It stated her class and attributes. What does an enchantress class mean anyway? Why did she have to get it? Was she a slut for real? Even the damn system is implying that. She wondered. Suddenly there was a faint sound of a phone's alarm. They decided to rest here for 6 hours. Each one of them would stay on guard for an hour and a half. Now the time was over and they needed to keep moving. Anna and the twin woke up and began to stretch up. Sleeping on the floor was not comfortable. Did anything happen while we slept? Asked Mina. No, we already cleared this area before, so there was no trouble. Let's eat something before we head out, she answered as she returned the dagger to Mana, while Mina nodded and started to take out some energy bars and water bottles from her bag. They were lucky that Victor packed all these, or they would have resorted to eating that ugly mushroom they saw the goblins munching at. I want to ask you something, Margaret said to the girls, who sat down and began to eat. What? Answered Mina. I noticed that our classes have something to do with our life experiences. She said, for example, Anna liked to treat injured animals since she was a child, so she was granted a healer class, while I am an enchantress for obvious reasons. But the two of you said that your class was sword mate. What did you do to earn your class? Margaret asked while squinting her eyes. Mina and Mana shivered a little and bowed their heads. Telling their friends about their class was a mistake. But they were not thinking straight at that time. Maybe it was a coincidence. Mina said, trying to escape the question. I don't believe so. Don't think that I am stupid. I have already noticed how you move around Victor, and how you repeatedly call him young master, before correcting yourselves. Are you his mates? Answer truthfully. I would keep your secret, and so would Anna, she asked, and looked at the surprised Anna, who quickly nodded. She was curious and not a talkative girl anyway. Mana looked at her anxious sister, then chose to answer. Yes. That is true. We are young Master Victor's mates. And we are not living with our aunt. We work in that mansion, she said. What? Anna was shocked. She thought the twins would just deny Margaret's claims. Why would you work as maids at a young age? Do you need the money? I can help you. While my family is not super rich, we do run some stores. You just needed to tell me, Anna said. Margaret also felt that it was strange, so she asked, can you tell us the reason? Mina looked at Mana, who nodded her head. They chose to tell the truth. She looked at Margaret and Anna. I can tell you, but you two have to swear not to tell anyone, she said. Fine, we promise, they replied. The twins began to tell their story, how they were haunted by that loan shark, then how they broke into that mansion in the forest. And about Hilda, who saved them, forced them to work in the mansion in exchange for their lives. It was Aunt Hilda who taught us how to fight. She said all the servants in that family needed to learn how to fight. That's all I can tell you, Mina said, finishing her story. What? I didn't expect that. Why don't you call the police? They are threatening you and forcing you to be mates, asked Anna. That won't work. You won't believe how strong the family is. We tried once. We were returned to the mansion by the police themselves, and we were punished hard for that escape, said Mina as she shivered, remembering Hilda's punishment. Margaret squinted her eyes as she was re-evaluating Victor's worth. His family is even stronger than she had expected. As for Anna, she went straight to the twins and hugged them hard. We are sorry, you suffered a lot. Can I do anything to help you? She said with watery eyes. She was always a soft girl. It's okay, young Master Victor treats us very well, Mina said with a slight smile. She was thankful for Anna's feelings. Can't you leave them now that you have become players? Can they keep you? Asked Margaret. But this time it was Mana who shook her head. No, if my guess is correct, young Master Victor and Miss Lily should have been players before coming here. She said softly, shocking her friends. What, why? Anna asked. Mina hesitated for a moment, then told them an abridged version of what happened with Nick that night. So you are saying that he should be a player to have that supernatural powers? Sounds reasonable, considering he was the one who got us here, said Margaret as she pondered. I can't believe that there are such superhumans in the world walking with normal people. I thought that we were the only ones, Anna said, making the girls nod in approval. If they were not experiencing this themselves, they would never believe it. Someone told them about it. Let's get going. We need to search for an exit or the others. We only have rations for 2 more days, so we should act swiftly, said Margaret as she finished packing her sleeping bag. The girls nodded and carefully headed out of the chamber. They didn't know where they were heading to, but Margaret marked all the walls of all the tunnels they have been to, and she instructed the twins to keep track of the path and draw a map as they walked. If it were not for her with them, they would probably be in a bad situation. It was an hour later when they encountered the goblins. There were 3 of them, so the girls went into a formation where the twins took to the offense with their steel daggers, while Margaret defended Anna from the back, using a staff she got from one of the goblins. The battle went smoothly and they won, with only Mina suffering a dagger stab in her leg. However, the ruckus they caused seemed to have alerted a team of 8 armed goblins that surprised them from the back when they rested after the battle. The girls didn't know it, but the reason for such a large team of goblins to be together was an order from the general. During the last day, fewer and fewer goblins were coming back to the base, so he ordered a few teams to patrol the dungeon. Margaret looked at them and knew that they were doomed. And they had only one chance to survive. Mina, take Anna and your sister and move forward. I will use my charm skill to lead them away, she said. She was not that heroic, but this was the only way. No, you would probably die, said Mana. It is our only way out. You 2 are already injured and can't fight, and I can tell that if one of you stayed, the other will too. And Anna can't possibly hold or lure them, she said as she saw the goblins raise their spear and began to approach them carefully, as if they were thinking, are those ugly monsters the ones who killed all our comrades? The girls looked at each other nervously, thinking what to do. No, we can't leave you, said Mina. Margaret sighed. Those girls were really stupid. They should always think of themselves first, she thought. Don't worry, my skill will keep me safe. They would never kill me. I am faster than them. She didn't lie, but her end would be worse than dead if she got caught. The girls didn't completely understand Margaret's skills, so they looked at her and asked, Are you sure? They asked as they thought of how she would sometimes make the goblin she was fighting with act weirdly. Yes, I will just lure them away and catch up with you later. She lied this time. Even if she escaped, she would have no way of locating the others in this maze. Fine, be careful, said Mana decisively as she helped Mina, whose leg wound was just healed and was having difficulty walking. They quickly backed away with Anna as Margaret slowly approached the horde. The goblins looked at her strangely. Is she going to challenge them? What an ugly creature, though. Her poor mother must have thrown her away when she saw the abomination she gave birth to. At least it still had arms and legs, the goblins thought. Slender arms and legs, they thought. Beautiful arms and legs, we should make her our wife, they thought, swallowing their green saliva as she activated her charming eye skill and ran away into a big tunnel to her side, hoping that she would lose the goblins and grant the girls time to find a refuge. The goblins didn't wait. They began to pursue her quickly with red fervorous eyes. They didn't run fast though, because of certain swollen things between their legs. Margaret was doing great and was able to gradually increase the distance between her and the goblins. But she had to stop when she realized she had made a mistake, a big mistake. This tunnel, although it was wide, it had no branches, just a dead end. She stopped there, with tears filling her eyes. She didn't want such an ending. She wanted to find some young master to marry and live happily ever after. She slowly turned around to face her doom, thinking that she should probably kill herself. She didn't find any goblins behind her, just scattered corpses slowly turning into dust, and a young man with purplish gray hair standing there like some kind of a thug. He was insolently inspecting her with his eyes as if he was inspecting some vase in an antique store. "You are interesting. Are you looking for a pimp?" he said with a warm yet arrogant smile, making Margaret want to kick him between his legs. That is not a word her Prince Charming should be saying. But her actions were different from her thoughts. Although she looked tough, she was still a little girl, and she needed a lot of courage to pull out that stunt. She threw herself in Victor's arms and began to sob. She was saved at last. Chapter 54, Deal. That was the easiest hunt Victor ever did. When he reached the area the girls were in, he saw them heading to an opposing tunnel while the goblins were pursuing someone to the right. Looking at the map, he could tell that this one was a dead end, so he quickly followed them and started to kill the goblins silently from the back. He didn't have to use his disguise skill. Those fools didn't turn to look at their dying friends, even after hearing their last screams. She made them lose all reason. If they had won, to begin with. He even had the leisure to collect their gems as they fell down and disintegrated. Victor had just finished stabbing the last goblin and collecting its gem when Margaret reached the dead end. He could see the desperate look in her eyes when she turned around, so he could only utter some stupid joke to cheer her up. He looked at her, sobbing in his embrace, and knew that she was not as strong as she appeared to be. Let's see how she did it, he thought. Name, Margaret Ringer. Level, 0. Class, Enchantress. Authority, 2. Strength, 22. Agility, 22. Intelligence, 25. Luck, 12. Charm, 35. Order, 10. Skills. Captivating Touch A. Charm Eyes A. Lure Dance D. Fate Status E, Raising. An Enchantress, this was a rare class. But it really suited her with her spicy personality, beautiful figure, and red curly hair. Did you finish your mating ritual? My shirt has become a wet towel because of your tears, said Victor insensitively. If I were any other girl, your nuts would have been kicked open by now, do you know that? Margaret said with her face still resting on his chest. She didn't let go. Victor could feel her shaking body ease a little. We need to catch up with the rest, we can continue this later, he said with a smile, making Margaret remember about her friends and reluctantly let go of Victor's shirt. But she didn't let go of his hand. What are you doing? He asked her. I have already decided, she said with an excited voice as she started to walk while holding Victor's hand, dragging him behind her. He could still see that her legs were still a little shaky, so he didn't resist. I am going to be your girlfriend, she said, not letting Victor, who was behind her, see her embarrassed face. He could see her red ears though. Is that for you to decide? Victor asked her with an amused smile. Yup, and you would be an idiot to refuse such a beauty, she said cockily, making Victor forget his arrogant persona. This young master is not against the idea, he said with a smirk, but I have to warn you, I have a fiancé, plus I already have many girls around me. So you won't be the only one, he said, not refusing her. I belong to a big family and we have a lot of rules. I don't mind taking care of you, but you must be sure this matter is no joke, he asked in a serious voice he rarely used. Margaret hesitated, she stayed silent, not knowing what to say. She continued to go forward, still not letting go of his hand. He knew that she didn't know what to do. Since you are currently still suffering from a shock and not thinking straight, I will give you time to reconsider. After we leave this dungeon, I will have to go away for a few days. I will call you and ask you about your decision when I return, he said, making Margaret relax a little. Fine, she said, not letting go of his hand. Soon they reached the road fork he was at earlier. This is where I was separated from the others. I don't know where they went, she said, changing the subject. A hint of nervousness can be felt in her voice. Follow me, he said. This was his time to lead. He walked through one of the tunnels while Margaret, who held his hand firmly, was dragged behind him. She looked at his strong back and thought about what he told her. He didn't say what position he would give her, but she understood that she would not have a high position in his heart. But would she get another chance to meet him once they left this dungeon? They belonged to different worlds. It's not like we would never see each other, said Victor, who could easily read the mind of a little girl. Now you have become a player. So you can join this young master to be admitted immediately to the special class in the elite academy, he said. What? She was surprised. The one Tom is planning to attend? Exactly, the special class is meant for players. It is a little costly though, he said. Doesn't that mean Tom was a player before coming here? What does it really mean to be a player, and what is this system thing? She asked. Yes, Tom was a player before coming here. As for the system, I will brief you when we meet the others, he said. Margaret could not hide the smile on her face as she walked. She was really poor and had to work part-time after school to support herself. She could have never dreamed of attending such a school. Now she had a chance. Are you happy that you can still be with Tom? He asked her with a sneer after seeing the smile on her face. Maybe, jealous already? How about you sponsor me, I will compensate you, she asked as she squeezed Victor's hand. Attending that school was costly. Tom told her that. Although he was admitted there, he still had to pay a hefty sum. You don't need me. Have you been collecting the gems? Those red things falling from the goblins, he asked. Ah, yes. Are those valuable? She asked as he has piqued her interest. The girls collected those as they thought they are pretty. They are usually priced by coins, the player's currency, one for each red gem. But if you want to exchange it outside, each coin can be exchanged from the system for 1 gram of gold. Be warned though, you can easily sell coins, but it's very hard to buy them with money, he said. Margaret was surprised. While every gem by itself is not very valuable, if someone were to make it his job to hunt in dungeons, he would get rich quickly. Is that how Tom got rich? She asked with an obvious curiosity in her eyes. Probably. But dungeons are not that common. And other dungeons may not be this easy, he said as if he read her mind. Those are just low-level gems. If you were to get some high-level ones or an artifact, that would be a different story, he said as he slowed down. They are getting near. Like this one? Asked Margaret as she pulled out a jade pendant she took from one goblin. Victor stopped and looked at the pendant with surprise. This thing was valuable. The hiker who was lost in the dungeon in his past life had it on him. But after he was killed, they didn't find it on his body. There was a rumor back then that the hiker didn't reveal any secrets of the player's existence. But this was just a cover, as the one who killed him was aiming for the treasure he found in the dungeon. This thing would get you killed, Victor said in a cold voice as he looked at the pendant. Pendant of Armas, equipment/S rank. Adds 1 authority. Equipping condition. Authority greater than 1 and authority less than 5. By itself, this thing is a treasure for beginners. It was useless to the high-leveled players. So it had no real value despite its S rank, which would inflate its price. But if it were to be used in a specific way, it can help semi-players who do not have the qualifications to equip them to become players. But this method is a secret. And it comes at a certain cost. But for desperate people, it is the only way. Right now this was not very expensive. But if those families knew its uses, it would be invaluable. Margaret was surprised by his tone and she looked at the pendant. What does it do? She asked. Increase authority, I will tell you about that later. But many people would kill their parents for such things, he said, making her look at the pendant with interest. If it were someone else here, you would probably be dead, he said, making her shiver. The first rule in the dungeon is not to reveal your spoils. Don't do such stupid things in the future, even if you trust the other. Many players died because of such stupidity, he reprimanded her. You can't keep this, keeping it is very dangerous and not worth the risk. I will offer you 2 methods. The first one is to auction it. It would get you a hefty price but would put a mark on you and many people would know that you have a lot of money. While the other is to sell it to me, he said, making Margaret nervous, not knowing what to do. How much would you pay? She asked nervously. This thing may be precious but only for beginners. It would only fetch you about 50.000 coins if you sell it to the system store. However, it is very rare and has an S rank. If you auction it, its price would be about 100,000. But can you keep that money with your background? I would only pay you 90.000 coins for it, he said. Who are you going to sell it to and for how much? She asked. She was not stupid. To my grandmother, and not for money, but for a favor. She needs this thing, he said the truth. Margaret hesitated for a moment, then looked at Victor and handed him the pendant. She decided to trust him for now. He could have easily killed her and blamed it on the goblins. And this was his family's mountain after all. If she wanted this thing, she wouldn't be able to keep it after they leave. Do you want me to pay you with coins or real money? He asked as he took the pendant and put it in a cloth bag. Do you have that much money on you now? She said jokingly. Okay, remember, coins are easy to sell, hard to buy. No one sells their coins, only beginner players and fools do that. Usually, players make their trades with a mix of coins and money. He said as he operated his menu and transferred 90,000 coins to her. I took advantage of you, so I will also add another $1.000.000. You can use it to buy a few things. We don't have internet access here, so I will transfer it to you in a few days. The school would cost you 100 coins, they don't accept regular money for the special class. He said. Margaret was pleased when she saw the notification of the coins transfer. She is now rich. As for Victor's claims about the pendant's value, she would check about their validity later. He didn't seem to be scamming her, and she would consider this a test for him. If he was telling her the truth, that would mean he is trustworthy, and she would be at ease in trusting herself to him. Now, she had enough money to spend for a lifetime, but no background and no power at all. She had a lot of choices to make, and would think about it carefully for the next few days. Does she still need a young master to rely on? She didn't know, but she did not let go of Victor's hand. How long are you planning on occupying my hand? He asked with a smile. As long as I want to, she said cheekily. I might have to start to charging you per the hour, he said. I have other ways to pay you, she spat back. He couldn't contend with this girl. He was afraid that if he molested her anymore, she would eat him whole. And he was not ready for such actions before his blood's awakening. If you don't want your friends to see us, you better let go, they are behind the corner. He said, making her hesitate a little. He took the chance to free his hand and run towards the cave where the girls were sitting. Margaret, who was surprised, kicked the ground and began to curse at him as she quickly followed.